Hallå, 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 hallå.
Ett, två, tre. Ett, två, tre. Nej. Ett, två, tre. Ett, två, tre. Ja, men det jag jobbar väldigt tyst. Hallå, hallå, hallå. Lalalala. Är det närmare? Ja, det, alltså så här? Ja, nej, det... But you guys can hear me, right? Yeah, so it's not a, shouldn't be a problem.
But if I will, yeah, hello.
Yes, all right. But if they're not joining online, then it doesn't really matter, right? If it doesn't work. No, but I mean, because if you hear, you can hear me. That this is for the this is for them if they can join. Right, so exactly. Right, so wanted to? Yes. Oh, oh, we are. Okay, all right, good. Yes, we can switch. Thank you. Tack. Yes. Right. So, yes. Works. Okay. Good.
Okay, so I hope everything works well, and I glad at least someone came for our the first event, and really happy to see you guys. So firstly, I will tell about the community that we launched, and then yeah, thank you. And then Rostislav will take a mic and speak about his topic about data governance. But firstly, about our community. We are named Tech Jam. We just launched it, I think, a few months ago. Why? Because I came to Sweden like 4 years ago, and I seen that it's not as much IT stuff is going, and yeah, as it was in Ukraine. And I really missed a lot of events that I had opportunity to choose. Like I open an application and see like, oh, okay, where I will go today. Oh, this company is launching, and for example, this event is going. This community is having some events. So where I will go, it's very nice and a lot of topics. So I missed it, and 4 years I waited just to learn how it works here. So people don't go anywhere. Okay, what can I do? And then now me and my brother, we just decided to launch the Discord server for the IT stuff, everything IT, and then try to do something like it will be today. Today we will speak about data governance, but we have already collaboration with some communities here and also international and online communities. So what is Tech Jam? It's the place for everyone. If you're a student, if you're professional, if you, I don't know, the company, you're welcome. We're based in Sweden. Mostly it's Lund and Malmö, and we are launching our events right now in Malmö, here in Go to 10. It's a very nice place. I like it. But we'll see, probably in the future when we will be bigger. It will be not enough. We will take Olympia, I don't know, in Helsingborg. Probably. We'll see. Our mission is just to build connections, collaboration, and some probably innovation, and help companies to find people, and help people to find companies, find job, and yeah, grow and learn something. And our goal is just to become a tech hub. It's very high ambition, but we'll see how it will goes. Yeah, it's just an ambition. What we do is we launch in events, meetups. We already collaborated with we just decided to collaborate with the hackathon community that's based in Stockholm, but they built some hackathons here in Malmö. It was in the start of June, somewhere here. I don't remember the place. Yeah, some workshops. Also, we are going to write some tech articles, content. publish in Medium. Probably today or tomorrow I will launch the a publisher in Medium where we will publish our content. It will be very high quality, I hope, because we will review all the content that we will write there. So no AI, nothing that's like low quality. And of course, collaboration and discussions is our goal. How we can get involved is the next slide will be about the place where you can join us. It's a QR code that you can scan. But right now, yeah, you can join us on our events, join online in Discord community, in LinkedIn. We have our page. You can contribute by articles in Medium that will be published later. In I will tell about it in Discord. We're not much people in Discord now, but hopefully it will be more. And yeah, help to share us this community. So basically, one is for Discord, one is for it's my LinkedIn. I don't know how. I didn't find any reason to publish the Discord LinkedIn, but you can join to mine. Just subscribe and go to connect me. We can we can discuss it if you want to just be a public speaker, if you want to join our events or just write some articles. You have some ideas. We are open because yeah, actually I can probably show it here how it looks our Discord. Just very quick one. Okay. So this looks like this, but we have communities for everyone. As I said, it's JavaScript, unfortunately, yeah, Python. There's some AI stuff, Java, Rust, whatever. It's quite empty now, but as we will be more people, we will, yeah, it will be a lot of fun, I hope. This is all from my side. Then I will just give the word to Rostislav, and yeah, please.
We can switch, right? I think, yes. Yes, hi everyone. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. Since we're just starting up, and when Vadim told me about the initiative, I think it's always fun to meet people, you know, from IT-ish surrounding communities. I say ish because I myself, I work with data, and being old, for me, pure IT is still kind of programming world. But everything surrounding it today is also considered being IT many times. So I thought of what topic I could bring that is kind of crossing, because I didn't know who would come, how many people, and also from what types of business, right, and what functions and roles and so on. So I thought that data governance is kind of touching upon everything today. It's both about IT, it's about business development, it's about everything from finance to whatever else. So can start with saying a little bit about myself. Work in data since 15 years back approximately. Currently in IKEA. I'm very happy to see one of the colleagues actually from IKEA joining as well. And the topic that I wanted to bring here is close to my heart because I dare to say that I'm passionate about it a little bit, because data touches once again everything today, but it is still a big mystery. When I speak to my colleagues who are in non-IT related functions, you speak to folks in purchasing, in some in finance, for them data is something very mysterious still. They think it's a purely IT subject, we don't understand it, we don't know it, and that's why I think this topic is very, very important, because we need to close that gap between tech side and the so-called business side. And I've seen it in other companies before IKEA as well. It's everywhere. I think it's like international multi-company thing, that there is always a bridge that needs to be crossed between IT and non-IT folks. And I think the data governance is one of the ways of doing that actually. I have had colleagues who I really believe, when I tell them that I work with data, they think of something like this, right? Because it's very AI, Neo, Matrix, that kind of world. In very best case, it is something like this. And I really asked around, like, what do you think when I say data? And they say it is a lot of, I don't know, it's a techie subject, right? So, and I try to explain to them that, well, it's not, because data is not only about numbers and digits. You go grocery shopping today, you make a list of things you will need to buy. That's actually data on paper that you put down, right? And you need to organize things around you. So in your house, I know you put keys for your car in one specific place when you get home. That's about organizing things. So we do it with everything in our everyday life. Why don't we do it enough with data? Because as I see it in big companies and big corp, we don't. We don't do enough, even not even close to that. And I think also the very common example I've heard and seen that many times it takes more time to find the data than you actually spend time using it, right? So you search forever, you search for sales numbers, you search for whatever statistics and analytics, and it takes too much time. Once you get there, well, you know, it's already taking too much time from you. So once again, big difference between IT-related functions in the company and non-IT. And when I ask non-IT, say finance, and ask them, what is data for you? They would say that is something about numbers, systems, right? It's software, so data is still a very IT subject, and of course programming. And I claim that no, it's not. Any purchase order that you make, right, or an invoice in any company, that's data. Any billing information on supplier, any address and zip code, that's also data. For pure engineering, you can talk about dimensions. You produce something, a car, you have millimeters on the drawing, that's data. Drawing number, it's data. Prices, sales numbers, everything is data. So I had this thought also once that my physics teacher told many, many years ago that energy is everything, and I see data a little bit like that. So the picture on the first slide to the right is a little bit, I think, what I try to see in my head when I think of data. It really touches everything in a company today. It's not being dedicated to one specific function, right? So that's why I think data governance is important, because all of that data needs to be governed. The only thing everyone agrees upon is Excel, that is data. That goes for both, I would say, IT and non-IT folks. It's still a big thing today. It's not about sophisticated software and programs. Excel, that's data for us. And that goes for everyone, I think. So,
Data or database?
yes, data, just the word data, because people think of data in terms of some Excel sheet somewhere. It's a table that contains information. That's what I think most of the people actually think when they hear the word data. So it's not the database is like the next step, right? It's more complex. That's a complex subject to touch, yes. And that's funny because for IT folks, I mean, everyone understands what data is, right? People who are working with pure IT understand, but we are just one function in a company. Everyone else still don't understand it. That's why data governance. But strictly technically speaking, data has a definition. You will find something along these lines pretty much wherever you look, right? And it's raw facts, figures, and symbols. That's data technically described. It's unprocessed and unorganized, and it has no context. It's so just a number somewhere in the system or a couple of symbols, that's data. The different subject is information, because technically speaking, once you process that data and you give it a meaning, data becomes information. So it's a techie description, and to be honest, I'm not really sure that it's valuable today, that it actually makes sense to everyone, because I give you an example. You will in one company have a department called data management. In the other, it will be information management, right? There will be data manager, information manager. But semantics are important. So just to agree upon them, I think it's the first step. Yes. Yes, very much so. Part of it, not everything, but part of it could very much be so, because information technology is one thing, but that term has become much broader over the years. I mean, when I grew up in the 90s, for me it was still pure programming. That was that geeky guy sitting there, you know, building things and then programming. Today, IT stretches over information systems as well, right? So the information management, yet another term that comes in, is also very broad. But once again, the point here is that some people will use the word data, some will use the word information. But they are pretty much the same in the corporate language today. Because, and I try to find, think of an example, when you see on a report somewhere that you get a price of 100 euros. And then on the next report you see, well, it's 100 euros over the last 12 months. Is the first one data, second one information? Seems like a small thing, but in many discussions I have had this brought up so many times, where people don't even agree on the basics, right? And I think it's important. And the work of setting this up also belongs partially to people working with data governance, thus the subject for today. This is supposed to represent very, very roughly a big corporation, a big company. You have a lot of functions with different what do you call departments and roles and so on. So you would have somewhere purchasing department, you have supply management, product ownership, right, portfolio management, logistics, production, warehousing, product development, R&D, sales, business analytics services. Like any big corp has more or less most of these functions, right? A bit differently described. And then somehow, in the middle, you're supposed to have someone who governs the data that comes out of each and every function. Because look, when you see an organizational chart in any big company, even in medium-sized companies, maybe smaller companies don't care as much, you can find somewhat a description. Oh, we have logistics there, purchasing here, sales, etc. But when you ask, yeah, but what's about the data that is generated in purchasing, in production, then people go, well, ask Peter. Yeah, but Peter left company 3 years ago. Okay, yeah, but then ask Anna, because she's on a maternity leave. And that's, I'm not even joking, that's like the hundreds of times I've heard those things, right?
Yeah, we can see it every day
yes.
in every company.
Everything, right? So that's one of the first steps when I try to explain it my work also for people who are from non-techie side, so to say, why this is important. Because you say, well, sales generate numbers. Services generate maybe, what can it be, maintenance recommendation documentation for some machinery somewhere. All of that has to be documented, put into system, and be available for everyone. Thus, we need to manage and govern all the data coming from everywhere.
Is documentation data or information?
It is definitely information, I would say. I would say so, yes.
Okay.
Right, it does, yeah? Yes. I would say so. I think that I have a slide on that a little bit because there are different views on that topic. I have my own, which I will share, but it can be discussed, so to say. So that's where I normally start at my work. Like we need to kind of put in place all the data that is generated everywhere. And the key principles of working with data governance, I would say the first is breaking data silos, because normally you will have a purchasing department that generates orders and order confirmations, and they're put in some place. Sales put it in different place. Just finding them and asking questions is not an easy topic. You never know even who to ask, especially the bigger the company, the bigger the complexity, right? So breaking those silos and bringing the data together, that's one of the tasks of people who would work with data governance. The second one, I even put a little bit of an emphasis on this, is ownership. I think that's the one that, in my experience, big companies are always lacking in this. Every company, not any single one, not just us or any other, everyone. Because when you find data and you try to find who's responsible for it, people, oh, it's not me. Because it means responsibility. It's a bit scary, because then you're supposed to have some accountability for the data that you created or your department created. So the role of data governance or the team working with it is to put ownership in place. And that I think in my work is by far the hardest thing to do, because it becomes a political matter. Like you create a data sheet somewhere, and I say, well, then you own it, and then you go, no, I just created for me and for my colleagues to see, right? Well, but it is out there, everyone can find it, and that is a problem, because then when someone wants to ask questions, well, who do I ask, right? Managing data as an asset and managing data assets is one also big thing, because we need to make sure that it is taken care of, right? We need ownership in place, but also responsibility, accountability. It needs to be properly documented. If you Google sometime, if you're not bored before you go to sleep about the data governance, you will find accuracy, consistency, integrity, and security as like the main focus areas or dimensions maybe of data governance. And yes, that's a big thing, but you need to break it down. It's very overall describing terms. What surprises me in a good way is data security is normally there. You will have an ITsec team somewhere that actually works fine. Like, because it's a lot of people can understand what it is. It's tangible, it's my private data. We're not supposed to leak it. Oh, we understand now GDPR a little bit more. And it actually works. The rest, nah. You can talk about frameworks and compliance. And this is a big thing that I have hope for today, that because, for instance, EU is pushing more and more with the new regulations coming our way, with, what can it be, AI Act. There are a lot of regulations on sustainability. There are things regarding digital product passport, if anyone heard about it. In 5 years-ish from now, every product that is sold in the EU market is supposed to have a digital product passport. Many companies are just waking up today and like, oh, really, we have to have that. Oh, shit. That we are. Digital product passport is like a documentation describing the product in a certain way that is regulated on the EU level. Yes, so the physical things that we sell will have to have a certain digital documentation.
Then don't we have it?
No, not even close.
Yeah, but in IKEA, you
No.
when you buy a small battery,
Yes.
you have this amount of
Yes.
paper with describe it.
And,
This is battery.
In the we describe it in the way that we see fit,
Yeah.
but so does everyone. So there is no standardization about
But
this
it has
at all.
regulation. What you
Part
like,
of it.
But like you have to write that you shouldn't eat it. You have like a age
Yes.
level, whatever.
Yes, and it will be 10 times more. That's that's the thing. Because today it's just a small thing how people write dimensions on anything you buy, right? Dimensions, width, length, depth. Yeah, in which order? That is right.
Thank you.
Yes, right. That is what do you work with?
I work with
Yes. So this sounds familiar a little bit with a right. Yes. And standardization. Yes, standardization is a big thing, right? And it will come more and more. We are being more and more heavily regulated. And the downside is that there is a lot of bureaucracy around it. And once again, we don't have data in place. So when EU comes to a big company and says, well, now you have to deliver on sustainability footprint, we have some data. Most of the companies have that. But they ask for more and more and more for good reasons, right? For good purposes. But to deliver on that, that's not an easy thing. That's, yes, please. Yes. I have an answer that is not very popular. It's CISO, shit in, shit out, right? Because for AI to be built, you need to have the basic data in place, and most of the companies don't. It's not in good shape. So if you feed AI, we all know that, right? If it's fed bad information and data, you get bad results. So scaling on business terms, on business products, for instance, or something that you sell, I think we have some years before we get to that. Once we get through the data obstacle, like organizing it, then yes. I wouldn't, let me give you an example. My wife told me a story recently. Her colleague, she gets a list of prices for products, and then she prints out the email, and then she looks at the paper and types manually into an Excel sheet those prices. So, can AI help her? Well, maybe, right? Take it with a pinch of salt. But I think we're over-exaggerating the power it has on certain areas. Yes. Yeah, right, exactly. That's a surprise.
You can't just treat it like
No.
but this is the format regulation. Take the data, put it in.
It doesn't understand it.
Should it be here?
There are,
EU says that this is what is or it will just or yeah, it will say a certain company it would have like 30,000 customers understated.
yes,
But they don't understand.
exactly. Exactly.
What she's saying about it reminds me like 7 years ago when I was working in some startup. We got a lot of data that's unstructured, a lot of data, and what we had to do is just to categorize it and then sort and then put on the place what we had. I was reading a lot of algorithms. I'm a Java developer, so I was reading a lot of algorithms that are basically sort this data, or we had the Goldstein algorithm just to see how far this these words one from another. Also, we used a lot of regular expressions, a lot. We had a separate role. We had a girl that was sitting with this regular expression full time, every day, and just work on it. And yeah, that's what we done. Also, we had the data science the team that were writing in Python some other, I don't know what they done there. I don't know. It was 2019, I think, and so basically 5-6 years ago. 2019. I don't know what they done before that time, because that was before ChatGPT and all this stuff. But they were written a lot of algorithms to work with this data. So what you say, it really sounds like this, and this is a nightmare, because we were writing the regular expression algorithm, a lot of like rules for data, just to, okay, this algorithm knows that this is names, this is last names, this is addresses, and when I came, we had like 30% accuracy of this sorting. In 1 year, I was leading this development. We did like 80%, and that was very big step. But that was nightmare. I can't imagine what will be when EU will represent it.
Yes.
I can't imagine how much work we will have to do, because I'm working in bank now. I don't know. We have a lot of data. And
But it's a lot about mapping, right? I mean, because it can be the same data and information you're looking at, but it's called differently. Some will call it dimension, some will call it size. So if the new regulation says, oh, now it's size by this standard, well, then we have to redo everything, and we have to give, for instance, to AI model that we're building, this formula that, okay, this A equals to B now, and not to C anymore. Then yes, it will help us. But to get to there, because it's such a huge load of information that needs to be processed. So I think on the programming front, actually there it's much more helpful. On the business development, my experience so far is not very positive. Like, we will get there, yes, eventually, but it will take time a little bit, I think. Oh, yes. Yes. Oh, yeah. And I think so one big thing with data governance, right, as I try, I think, to emphasize, is that we have to have people in place who are responsible and actually taking care and full responsibility for different data assets that we create. It can be anything, right, from finance to engineering. And the question is always, but yeah, that makes sense. How do we do it, right? And 15 years of experience, I still don't have the perfect answer, unfortunately. But I'm getting there, I think, slowly but surely. And I would say that the first is a big organizational change. And it's not only in terms of departments and who does what, but it's also a mindset change. Like I said, people see this as a purely IT, too complicated thing. And us being on the IT side, quote unquote, we are not too good at explaining this either. We come to whatever finance department and we try to tell them that, oh, you guys are producing this data, can you take ownership of this? And we never understand, we never explain what it actually means. That's one. Two, I would say we need to bring good examples why this is important. And it's not always easy, because in many companies the data is actually not really bad, but it can be much, much better. And that's a problem there, right? Because the return of investment doesn't come within a year. It might take 5 years, it might take 10 years. To explain that is not always easy. So my suggestion is always to my colleagues, we need to bring good examples. Say what can we do here to improve the data? Then our colleagues can find it easier. It can be published in a better way. I know the customers can reach it. It can be clearer. And also the big thing, when you have question, who do you ask? To find the person responsible, that's a big thing. So it's a lot of change management and explaining over and over and over and over again, and try not to blame the other party for not understanding, but actually be a bit more humble and explain it in a broader terms, so to say, right? We have to explain very carefully the roles and the responsibilities. So if you come to a department and say, well, you and I guys responsible and girls responsible for this data here, yeah, but what does it mean? Well, you have this mandate, you have this budget, you have these resources, this time allocation, et cetera, et cetera. That is bypassed many, many times. I've seen it too often, unfortunately. The second part of the same picture is, of course, the systems. And that's also close to my heart, because I have worked with this a lot. I put there one ERP to rule them all. And the enterprise resource planning system, like big database in the middle, where, Vadim, I think we're sitting a bit in the way. So, thanks. Sorry, one ERP. So one big database in the middle, and this is not obvious for everyone. Like, why should we have one big system? We have 20 systems already. Half of them are home built. They work. We kind of, it kind of functions. To explain that is not always easy, but it's needed. Same goes for CAD tools, like for engineering software, documentation, reporting, and business intelligence. Because I've seen this also many times, we will have 3 different CAD systems. For people unfamiliar, that's the 3D drawings, right, software. Why would you have 3 different systems in one company doing pretty much the same thing? What's that? And it costs, the licenses costs are insane today, right? So cut it out. Take one, decide, and use it.
Yeah, because
Sometimes yes, but I've seen where it's not. And still there are 2 different systems.
yeah, but usually we had developers that use this one, we had a person that used this one, and then we have project. Like it was like a moving from when IntelliJ idea came, like JetBrains moved everything in one place. But before we had NetBeans, we had Eclipse, we had a lot of other code formatters. Yeah, how we call it? Yeah, IDE. Yeah. So and you couldn't transfer project from the Eclipse to NetBeans and vice versa. That's why in companies they were saying like we working on Eclipse, for example. But now everyone works in IntelliJ IDEA. Also we have GitHub, whatever, and now it's independent. But what you say, Rostislav, I think it's really like we had this guy that worked on this tool, this guy that worked on this tool, and then what we have to do, we just continue using this and this.
But you have examples of M&A, right? When you have merger and acquisition, and then you buy a company, and they have a software, and then it's like, yeah, but let them keep it, let them use it, because it costs too much to incorporate and change. And then 10 years later, it's always the same story. We should have done it because it cost us much more money. That's very classic. That's also a big mistake, because I think people making decisions are not always aware of that. And companies are conservative. I think, also the bigger the company, the more conservative it gets. And of course, when you have colleagues working with something for 20 years, to explain to them that, hey, we have to scratch it all, and now we have to implement this new system, that's not an easy task, right? It takes a lot of, you have to be politically very skilled to do that, I would say. Because it's not always about the technical decision, and that's, I think I have a thing here, that technically, I still believe, and always did, we can solve anything, right? But we have to have the business side with us. And actually, I think a lot of these initiatives must start on the business side. Because if IT says, for instance, we need this new tool, or engineering says we need this new tool, it will take forever to actually purchase it, to get all the approvals everywhere. The business needs to start because they have to show the need. And that, right? But that work lies on us. I think a lot working on the other side, so to say, explaining where the need comes from. Then the business says, oh, we actually need it. Then it's much easier road forward. And mandate has always been an issue, I think always is in any big company. Because, well, especially in Sweden, we have Jantelagen and everything is very flat. No one is supposed to take too much responsibility. We're working in a team, which makes it hard sometimes to actually, decide on something. So clear mandate and business initiative, I think, are very crucial to this. I will go faster. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. I can just quickly jump through this because it might be a bit much, but when I try to explain this about one ERP system, right, one central database, I've drawn this many times on whiteboard for many colleagues, saying that if someone works, we have a product that we develop in our company, right? We develop a car. Somewhere it starts and someone puts in an item name or the car brand name, the new model name in the system, they book a number, engineering adds, engineering data, dimensions, drawings, supply management comes in, finance, software, warehouse management, sales, marketing, services, whatever it is. So having that in 5 different systems is a problem because you need a gazillion of APIs to put everything together. But also when you're sitting in finance and you want to find a drawing revision, that's very hard today. And most of the companies I've seen, especially big ones, this is lacking. There are too many systems in game, too many. It costs money, like gazillion. That's maybe over-exaggeration, but it costs a lot of money because, first of all, you have to maintain a lot of systems. Every maintenance takes time and money. You need to send data back and forth, API, everything, maintain them. That's a cost. And then for people to understand the complexity of 20 different systems, yet another cost. So the money is always a big argument here. And I've seen cases where companies scrapped a lot of old systems, implemented one new one big one centrally, taking over 80%. I'm talking database on a very high level. It worked magic. It's never pain-free. It's always painful. It doesn't matter if it's SAP, what do we have, Microsoft Dynamics, Oracle, Infor, whatever the big systems we have. It's always very painful to get there because companies are conservative once again, right? It hurts. We've been doing this for 20 years. And I always try to explain, oh, this is how it will look on the right. The reality, of course, that it looks like this. In the end, it's not very sexy. Most of the big systems today still look like Windows 95. And unfortunately, but true. But still, once you have one ERP, one system in place, finance can jump in with a little bit of knowledge and find, the root of whatever cell and data there is. And then they can find a person who they can ask questions, right? And just quickly there are different types of data governance. And centralized, hybrid, and federative are used normally, people refer to them. Centralized data governance, you have one big team in the center, everything is centrally controlled. I've never really seen it myself in big companies, to be honest. Smaller ones, yes, because you can have Vadim here actually, dictating everything. But in the bigger companies, you will have either hybrid model or federative model, meaning either you have a central team that decides somewhat on policies and processes and so on, and then it's distributed out to the different business units and so on. Federative when it's completely flat. It's a big matrix of everyone working together, dividing dimensions and domains and so on. Right? That's a different way of doing it. Plus and minus, the ups and downsides to everything, of course. Hybrid model, in my personal experience, tends to work a little bit better because you set policies centrally. You have a team that actually decides how the data should be governed and then distributes. And then there is still some flexibility on a, say, business unit level. Federative model is very tricky to set because everyone has something to say and everyone is on the same level of decision making, right? How it looks in reality, I tried to put it as simple as I could. Once again, business unit B, business unit A in one company. Either you have a central team that engineering develops something, they go through product owners, supply management adds their data, services add their data, and they go to some kind of master data management team that reports to a central one. And the same goes for the other business unit. But it's still in the middle that a lot of decisions are taken and made, contra or versus the federative model where, let me give you a good example. You have a factory that develops and builds cars and tractors. So engineering that builds cars and engineering in other business units that build tractors, they are supposed to work together to align and agree on how do we handle our data. What standards do we use? How do we report on it? How do we put it in place? And when you have 20 different business units in some companies, that's a nightmare. And without central steering, it's very, very tough to accomplish in my experience. So I'm not hating on federative model, don't get me wrong, but I think it's much more tricky to put in place.
Probably depends what company you are working on and what you are basically doing. Because if you build Lamborghini and if you build a tractor, actually Lamborghini build tractors.
Yes, right.
It could be
That's right.
It could be difficult to handle a data because it's quite different products.
I think it's also the size of a company that matters. I think size really does matter here because the bigger the company, the more complexity it brings. Like 2 business units is nothing, but when you have 15 or 20, right, to make them work together. Yes.
Yeah, looks like.
Could be. It could be the way. Yes, it could be. But I think also some companies actually, what I've seen, they decide that we don't want the central steering. We want everyone to cooperate. And that for me is a little bit of, I can compare it to the Swedish culture a little bit, right? We are very consensus driven. If you compare to countries like maybe Japan or even Germany in Europe, right? It's much more vertical hierarchy, the boss decides. I think that's a little bit of a similar. So it's not good or bad, it's just a different approach. Yes. Where were you from? Hello, another colleague. Very nice to see. Okay, yeah. All right, all right. So something sounds familiar, right? A little bit, I think. Maybe from Inca side, but I think anyone from any big company would recognize a lot of things here. I believe. Yes. 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 It depends, I think, on how we define it, right? In my definition, how I have seen it so far, domains are normally set on, say that you have engineering data, dimensions, drawings, and so on. It doesn't really matter within which business unit it sits. It goes across the company, right? You can have, once again, different products, different business units developing something. So it is a domain. It collects all the engineering data, right? That's one approach to it. And you can still have it, of course, in a hybrid model as well. But in the hybrid model, I claim at least that, well, yes, it is owned in the business unit level, but then everything goes to a central function that then decides. In federative, domains are meant to be equal to each other, right? There is no, normally I haven't seen at least the very strong central function that dictates how to work with that. So it's more about either someone decides for you or you kind of make decision on your own. It's a matter of definition also of data domains. The domains have been used in many different ways that I have seen. And quality, I think we can skip for today a little bit. I want to just end quickly with a little bit of, if interesting for anyone, with some useful links and things that I have myself seen that really helped me. I stumbled upon a relatively new ISO standard, 8000, that works with data quality. And it seems to me they're still building it, because I've seen additions coming in like in the last year, and I just put in, if someone is interested, a list of the standards within that can be interesting. GS1, anyone familiar with GS1 as a company? Yes, one, okay, good. International company that tries, non-profit, tries to bring in standards internationally for instance, taxonomy of products. So that if you find a valve, that every company should classify it in the same way with digits and numbers. So that when you search for it, it falls under the same hierarchy tree. So GS1 is focused a lot on standards. My experience has been really great with them. I'm not in any way representative, but my experience has been really good. And then DAMA, the Data Management Body of Knowledge, Data Management, I think they're called International something. They are publishing a book. They try to, a lot about data governance. Similar to like project management literature and stuff, but for data governance. So if anyone is interested, those things I could at least emphasize on and highlight. I think that's it. Yes.
Slide is that centralized hybrid federated. Does it make any difference, like becoming compliant with a new standard? Is it
Easier here?
is it easier?
Yeah, of course, yes. In my eyes, yes, because in a federative, like I have seen at least, in a federative setup, everyone has a say. And sometimes it's a good thing, but it depends on how many people there are, right? So for me, it's, once again, my own experience has been that when you have somewhere hybrid / centralized setup, they collect everything, all the data from everyone, right? And then they go to, say, a legal authority somewhere, and then they negotiate and like, okay, now we do it in this way because it's still a negotiation many times, but this is what we can give you. Instead of, say, 5 different parts of the same company going to the same authority and having the discussions, it goes there. It's not supposed to, but it does go there in my experience. So when you have more centralized authority for data, it makes things easier. So I would say it's, when it's specifically when it comes to compliance, I would say that this one, those two here, are faster. Because there are too many discussions on the right. Like federative for me is great when it is set, maybe, yes. But to get there, it's a long road. lately I try to go through data quality. And it's not easy because you have to find cases where the data is actually bad, but it can also be, I try to find cases where data can be improved. So part of data quality, as of anything that has to do with data governance, is once again ownership. So I show sometimes just live example. Okay, here is your data from any system. Can you help me find who is responsible for it? And people go, huh? Like, because I don't know who exactly. You don't know who's responsible. So if you have a question about what is it, a design or dimension or sales prices, whatever, you cannot even find that. So meaning that ownership and accountability for the data is not really there if you're not familiar with it. That's always for me is a good example to show. And then you can show what good looks like. You can have an example of a system. You can have a business glossary seems to be a very popular thing nowadays. In a business glossary, like a Wikipedia, you're supposed to have a responsible person for each data set. So there you search, we have dimensions, oh, it's Kalle and Pelle. Perfect, then you can call them. I would say that's one. Two, I show a lot on the ERP. That's why I put in a lot of boxes on describing different data, because for me, if that's in place, that cuts down the money and the price a lot. So I use good examples on one ERP system instead of several. And also else I try to find people who can give me money, like in numbers, how much are they spending on actually working on bad data coming in. So if we are sending something to another part of the company, you will always find someone who say, yeah, it's not much, but we spend, an hour weekly to fix your data because the format is wrong. And then you're like, okay, it's 52 hours a year. How much money does that cost? Plus something else, plus something else. Numbers are important, super tricky to find sometimes. But I think that's the biggest, the heaviest argument I have had at least. So I spend a lot of time on finding those, because money talks. It really does. Oh, you had the last, yes, there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening. I hope I didn't bore you to death. No? Good? Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for coming. And this is again, this is the QR code that goes to our Discord server. As I say, it's not much people there yet, but we just started it. So let's see. We will make some fun. Yeah. Yeah.
Please.
Well, I have two actually. You mentioned that ERP. Have you worked with the same ERP?
Yes.
Sorry, one moment. I just don't want to interrupt. We have to finish. We have not much time yet, but we can move to that place and just network and speak. So yeah, we're not closing. I just want to just to say like, okay, we finished here and we can move there and just speak.
Yes.
Just a little bit.
But sure,
nervous
please,
about
but we
it.
can take the question. Then if we want, we can move around.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned ERP.
Yes.
Having this modern kind of ERP.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know, is it a relevant comparison to, now I'm new at this company.
Mm-hmm.
There's a unified ERP governance system.
Compliance, yeah.
Can you use the same language saying that unifying all that in the same platform gives you those synergy effects?
I would say, I think that on the business side, on the business development, I think it applies to everything pretty much, because I can compare it to business intelligence, right? When you can have Click and Power BI. That's an example I have seen several times. You would have two different systems, for the reason that I don't really understand. Like, and you guys are doing the same thing. You go to two different departments, or you have two different supplier management departments that are using different systems. So I would say it goes the same. But when it comes to ERP specifically, my experience there comes from production. Like, it's an industry that produces a product, right? Because then ERP is a lot about heavy logistics and also product information, like drawing revisions, like prices, sale prices, like everything that is connected to the product itself. So that's where it's a good example. It depends what the company is, producing and building.